Hello and welcome. This is Puneeth and you are listening to Galata. Today with you and I, we have an interesting guest who's been tinkering around and solving an unaddressed issue, which is what happens within our gut. He analyzes human poop or shit and brings in fascinating insights of how and what is happening inside our microbiome and how you can change it for the betterment of your health. Over the last decade, he and his two co-founders have bootstrapped this business, raising very little amount of funds to sustain. Considering it's a deep tech, biotech business, it's unusual and unheard of, and the problem they have solved is also even more niche. It makes this conversation even more exciting and interesting to see how they have made it happen. Today, they serve over 50,000 consumers every year, and they're only scaling further. Please join me in welcoming the co-founder of Leucine Biome and Bugspeaks, Kumar Sanskaran. Kumar, welcome on Galata.
Thank you, Puneeth, for inviting me.
It's really interesting how I first met you. The first time I hosted you at Ichai was also my first hosting of an Ichai. I'd always volunteered around for a year, helping with the water, with the coffee, with the light, with the mic running. But only somebody backed out last minute and I was like, Puneeth, can you host this? And that's how I got to host you for Ichai. And I'm so glad it was just you and nobody else. Otherwise, the panels are usually 3 to 4 people long. And there's a lot of research involved. And you made me feel comfortable. And it was hilarious because of the topic we dealt with. So I'm glad that's how our paths crossed again. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a memorable evening. I mean, the way you hosted it, the way you interacted with the crowd, all of that was really good. And I thoroughly enjoyed that evening.
Thank you. Elders' blessings. The usual first question I start with is, what were the conversations around dinner table when you were growing up?
So yeah, my dad used to work for a pharmaceutical company, GSK, and so the conversations were mainly about the medicines they were producing, what kind of chemicals, the dictionary of all the chemicals was like his Bible. So I knew names like paracetamol and all that just when I was very, very young. Just what the chemical composition of each of the medicines were. So that was
a dinner table conversation.
There was a lot of dinner table conversations that I remember.
Tell me about the insight that led to what you're doing now.
So right after graduation, I started working in a company which was into drug discovery. So we were trying to come up with new molecules for diabetes. So a lot of exposure over there. So both from the research side and how the application of the research is going to be finally used in the field. So during those years, I mean, met with a lot of doctors. And they were saying, even if you give us a 1% improvement on the existing drugs that are out there in the market, it's a big game changer, for the patients. So we were looking at it and trying to find out, can we do something in preventive healthcare? Can we stop it? Can we detect it much early? Can we do something in preventive healthcare? And it was ideas around that finally, gave the path to start a company.
Go deeper on that.
So is there a new technology that's out there that can detect a disease, say 5 years before it even occurs? So that's what we were concentrating on. That's the thought process that we were having. So the initial thing was human genetics. Can we look at a genetics of a person and then decide, tell this person whether he's going to get a disease, he or she is going to get a disease very early on, before the disease even onsets. But the problem with genetics that we faced initially was that, I can tell you're prone to diabetes, but there's very little you can do to change the genetics. That's your genetic makeup. I know editing of genes is now slowly coming into place, but that's still, 20, 30 years away from actually being actually actionable. So then from the genetics, we started looking at what are the other factors that goes into disease, starting of a disease, progression of it. And that's when we stumbled upon the microbiome and started working on that.
So why did you narrow down on microbiome?
Good question. It was new science. Initially, we thought it was pseudoscience. So papers around the microbiome started coming out in 2009, 2010, around that point of time. We started looking into the microbiome in 2013. So there were only about 3-4 years of research that was out at that point of time. So initially we didn't believe it as much, but as we dug in deeper and deeper, it started making more and more sense. There were a lot more connections. I mean, we're from India. Root of all diseases is the gut in India. Ayurveda, naturopathy. You take any of the Indian philosophy, gut is very, very important. So when we started looking at the microbiome, especially the gut microbiome, it started making a lot more sense. Then talked to a few, researchers in this field who are pioneers in this field, and gave us confidence that the microbiome actually controls a lot of our health and disease states. So that's when we decided it was a new technology that nobody's we were very, very early in the market for it. We could develop technologies around it. We had the knowledge and the wherewithal to do it, and it had a solution for healthcare.
Were you able to assemble a team early on, or was it all an independent research, an independent effort initially? How were you able to manage that?
So the 3 founders of the company, all of us have deep drug discovery background, so we knew.
How did you find each other?
We were all working in the same company at some point of time, so we overlapped parts of that. So that's how we knew each other, and the skill sets that we brought were complementary, and and the 3 of us got together and said, let's do something in this space. So we knew what needed to be done to put everything together. We knew the skill sets we had. We knew the skill sets that were required to find talent around and put a team together. First startup, slightly naive, just said, okay, let's employ 6 people right from, let's employ 4 people right from day one, which was rather brave, I would say. But got the right kind of team, and
didn't get the right kind of team.
Got the right kind of team. The first 4 people stayed with us for almost 7-8 years.
Wow! How did you get to convince them to come and work in a science that's so close, bordering pseudoscience, very new, and there's a huge lag time, anything to do with in the space of science?
That's the thing, right? I mean, when it's new science, it's breaking the frontiers and all of that. A lot of people want to come and work in it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Was microbiome at that stage already, where a lot of people wanted to come in and work?
No, nobody knew the microbiome. Nobody knew about it. I mean, we had to explain what we were doing and all of that. And even we didn't have total clarity as to what we were trying to build out. I mean, initially it was like a SaaS platform that any doctor could use or any researcher could use. You just upload the microbiome data and you get meaning out of it. So that was the idea in which we went in. So the first tech guy that we got, so he had written a program which would automatically go. This is way back in 2014. So it'll go scrape the internet, find out interesting jobs, automatically filter the ones based on his likes and dislikes, and show him a pop-up of what are the jobs that he might be enjoying doing. So and that's how I got my first tech guy. So it was this Python wizard who who came to us. He interviewed us more than us interviewing him. But that's what you need.
What made him choose you?
Just the interesting subject. I mean, I explained a few problems that we were going to tackle, and he was ready to go from day one. So,
what were the problems you had initially decided to tackle? I'm sure they would have changed over time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it changed every maybe 6 months to a year. I mean. But
thanks for your honesty.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the life of a startup. If any founder is saying anything any different, then they're probably lying over there. I mean, you don't have any idea when you start off. I mean, you think you know what you're doing, but as soon as you go to the market, you realize the solution you're building needs to be different, and that's how you constantly change. So, like I said, initially it was like a SaaS platform that we wanted to build. So we developed that. We developed a SaaS platform. We also got a few researchers to give us data. We'd process it, give them back reports and all of that. But then we quickly realized that every project was different. So you couldn't have standardization in the platform. So somebody wanted to do the human microbiome, somebody wanted to do the spider's gut microbiome. So and the
spider's gut microbiome.
So this was a very, very interesting project that came to us. I mean, this was through another collaborator in the US. So they were a sequencing company, and they reached out to us saying that a farmer, US farmers are big farmlands, and he wanted to know why the spider was eating a particular type of honeybee, which was very crucial for his farming practices. And he wanted to know whether the spider's gut microbiome had anything to do with it.
Wow, what a problem statement.
Oh, exactly. And this challenged us in multiple levels. And it's projects like this that one excites you. Then you tend to bring the best out of every individual in the team, and you try and answer questions that you never thought about. Here we are saying that, let's build a program where somebody is researching to come up with a new, nutrition bar for diabetes, and a farmer comes in and says, no, leave all that aside. Let's do the spider's microbiome. So it was interesting projects like that made our algorithms better, our tech really, really good. And we'd give back the information. A lot of the researchers would go up, do follow-up experiments, tell us what didn't work. So initially we got a lot of things wrong. And it's only...
Give us an instance or two.
Huh?
Give us an instance or two where things went really wrong, and how were you able to navigate that?
Even today, all the world's knowledge put together, we understand less than 10% of the gut microbiome. There's so much of unknowns over there. And you need to do a lot of predictive analysis. So looking at the bacterial sequence, like how it happened for COVID, you look at the COVID sequence, and then you kind of understand the virulence, where it's binding and all of that. Similarly, with every bacterial, fungal, viral sequence that we were doing, we were trying to predict what the function of that could be.
So it's still like a guesswork.
It's still like it's a very data-driven guesswork, but it doesn't necessarily. Biology never performs that way. So
it's not like math.
It's not like math. So they went back. A lot of the researchers went back and told us, this worked, this didn't work. I mean, so this guesswork was much better than this one. So
they were able to validate.
They validated
feedback loop.
Yeah, validated and gave us that feedback loop, and that's how we kind of improved. And I mean, it's not like we got too much from these projects. I mean, this was $100 for 10 samples or something like that. So, hardly any money, but you learned a lot, by engaging with these researchers.
How did you guys get by with a team of 4 and 3 co-founders? That's a significant payroll to meet.
Yeah, I don't think
and I don't know the labs and the other...
So we didn't have a lab of our own for the longest time. We were computational biology for the longest time.
What's computational biology?
So just taking the data, sitting in front of the computer and analyzing biological data. So give you an example. So
it's like a BPO for biology?
Yes, it is BPO for biology.
Okay. That is really dumb. If I've offended someone, my bad.
I mean, that's a very, very crude way to put it. But yes, at the end of the day, I mean, you're looking at data on the computer screen and you're deciding, this is what's happening in the biological realm. So,
why would a researcher outsource this to you guys?
Because it's so much of data, and the researchers won't be able to understand, do any of these analysis. Let's take microbiome, for example. All right. If I were to profile your gut, I would see anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 organisms. All right. To determine that, I am banging it against 240,000 signatures. And every person's gut microbiome is so different that it could be any of the 1,500 from the 240,000 signatures. So you can get the complexity in which the amount of data that needs to be run. There's a lot of stats involved. A lot of the researchers, especially the lab guys, probably don't understand p-value as much. You give them p-value of 0.01, they're happy, but how do you derive at it? What are the parameters that you set to derive at it, with respect to the data? All of that is very, very hard to understand.
So I remember you mentioned that most of these projects were from US and not from India.
Definitely not India.
Definitely not India.
Europe and US is
Europe and US. How were you able to convince them or how were you able to get their trust to work on data like this? And how were you able to find such projects?
So this when we first built the SaaS platform, we went to sequencing companies. So the guys, the lab guys who had the big sequencers. So when I say sequencing, I mean anything that you can put a DNA in and it'll tell you what the sequence is. So so we went to those companies and we said, there's a platform. We've built a platform for you guys to interpret data and do analysis on top of the sequencing that you guys are doing. And then they went to their customers and said, it's not only sequencing that we can do, but we'll also do analysis for you and give it. So that's how the initial set of customers we got.
So they became
they used to sell our service that way. And then it
became a nice upsell for them.
It became a nice upsell for them. So then it became complicated for them. Even for them, the data interpretation piece was complicated. I mean, they couldn't go and tell the customers exactly what the data is saying. So they said, can you hop on a call and explain it to the researcher what you've analyzed? So there we got direct connect with the researcher. And, next project onwards, the researchers would come directly to us with the data saying that, can you please, analyze this and give it to us. So we spent about 3-4 years doing just this while we were building all the tech to do consumer.
But what's like I don't know what you call it, but project to project?
Yeah, sequence.
Like a 6-month cycle.
Yeah, it's almost like a 6-month cycle because the sequencing itself takes about a month or two. Especially at that point of time, it used to take about 2 months. There'll be multiple failures at the sequencing level, so they'll have to redo the samples. We'll tell them the data is not enough. You'll have to generate more data. Things like that. Then you get on a call with the researchers. They're like, no, this is not what we wanted to analyze. This is something else that we want. So you'll have to go back to the analysis. And that's when after doing a few projects like this, we kind of got to know, there's no way to standardize this. I mean, you can't build a plug and play for something like this. And but it's interaction with those guys that made us understand all of this. And you're right, it was close to a 6-month cycle to finish a project.
For $100 project.
For $100 project. We started getting many more of these $100, which kept the revenue coming into the company, and we were able to pay off team salaries and all of that. But yeah. But
how do you decide to charge for something like this?
Very difficult, right? I mean, there's no benchmark for something like this. You just throw a number, see if they find it too high, too low, and you get a ballpark number from what the lab guys are charging, the sequencing companies are charging, and everybody thinks informatics should be just a small percentage of that.
Yeah.
So, you work around with numbers like that, and you try and up it a little bit. If it doesn't, you push it. If it doesn't sell, then you come back to the number.
So who take care of the selling part? Because so far I gather most of you are scientists, part researchers, part geeks. So who took care of the selling part?
So just a little bit of background to answer this question. So I've done my master's in biotech, and after that started working in as a researcher. But then later on, I also started looking at the market side of it as well. So where does this product go? Who's going to be the buyer for the product? So even if we develop a drug, which pharmaceutical company is going to come and buy it? Why are they going to buy it? Why would a Takeda buy it over a Roche or a Johnson Johnson kind of a thing? So trying to do some market analysis on that. So Prabhat, my co-founder, he has similar education qualification and also work experience, but he more likes clinical trials and product development, and so he takes care of the product end of it. And our third member on the team, Deb, he's a PhD in molecular biology, but most of his work experience has been in business development and pharma consulting. So somebody with a science background but done business development. So he used to lead the business development activities at that point of time. I mean, it still does. So he was the one talking to all these companies and saying, this is how our product can fit your offering. This is how much we'll charge, and all of that. But all of us, wear multiple hats.
I'm sure, yeah.
All of us have done selling at some point of time. So.
Yeah, I love that. How well complementing the three of you are.
Yeah, the one is complementarity. The other one is all of us have, I think, the same wavelength in terms of, the way we approach things. We have the same wavelength. We disagree on a lot of things, but don't end up fighting too much because we think in the same wavelength. So that was a good thing.
So you have a very well-functioning team, and you're able to get these researchers, institutions to outsource this part of their work to you guys. Why did you pivot then?
Because it wasn't standardized, it wasn't going to be high paying, and it wasn't like we created software, plugged it into some other machine, and how the SaaS model works, right? So there's initial development cost, and then after that it just runs on its own. Cash cow runs on its own. We didn't think the market was heading that way. It still isn't. I mean, I don't see a successful good SaaS company in the genomic space right now. There are one or two which is more in the software business, but software as a service I don't think is working well in genomics right now. Secondly, there was we wanted to build something out for India. That was the ultimate goal. This was a good way to get into research and make sure that our products are working well, our algorithms are good, and all of that.
I usually see SaaS companies built in Bangalore and offering their services to US because they pay. Why would you choose a different route?
So there was a happy accident that happened. So
a happy accident.
Yes. So we got connected to a wellness center over here in Bangalore. So they were training athletes who represent India at the international level.
Which one?
It's called Potential Health Development. And so you have the top badminton players, cricketers, everybody walking into their facility, and they were training them. And so they kind of asked us, can you do a microbiome test for these athletes? Because even if you can give them a little bit of knowledge of what's happening in the microbiome, for them on the field, it makes a huge difference. In their training programs, it'll make a huge difference. And we were like, analysis for something like this is very easy. But then we started thinking about, what do we do for the lab? How do we collect the sample? And for the gut microbiome sample,
how does it work?
Yeah, so we have to collect the fecal sample. How do you collect that? Where do we get the tubes for it? So we had to think about all of that and get into it. But it was that question from one of the wellness companies said, that prompted us to want to do it.
How did you even convince these elite athletes to give you their sample and explain them how to give the sample?
Imagine at that point of time, the cost of doing the test was 36,000 rupees, because we were sending the samples to US for the sequencing to happen.
Oh.
And then the data would come to us, and then we'll make meaning into it. So going to somebody, telling them, pay 36,000 rupees, you'll have to give us your poop, and it's a new test that you've never heard of. We probably understand very little of it, but whatever little we understand, we'll be able to help you with. So,
how many athletes were you able to get?
we got a few. I mean, we got at least close to about 40-50.
40-50 athletes.
Yeah, that came over 2 years or something like that from various places. They started coming in, because the once you give solutions to about 2 or 3,
the word spreads.
The word spreads, especially in the elite community of athletes. It kind of spreads. And
how were you able to get those initial 2 to 3? Was the institution fund?
So there was like I said, there was
potential performance.
Yeah, they were trying to give performance to these guys, and that's how we got it. And although when you think about poop sample collection, it might sound yucky, but it's not like drawing a blood out or something like that. You don't. There you're scared. Here you're just feeling awkward to do it. So that was both a good and a bad thing. Right? If you said blood, it would have been a lot harder. Is what I'm thinking.
Oh, if you have asked for blood, it would have been harder?
Yeah, then the questions would have been much more. What are you doing? Why do I have to? Why
because
do
they
I
know now they understand with the drug test.
All of that.
A performance enhancement company approaches somebody like you to analyze gut biome.
Yeah, because there's nobody else in India who can do gut biome. So this is 2016, 15, 16, I think, and there's nobody in the world actually offering such services. I mean, there's 1 or 2 companies. There was Biome at that point of time, and there was one more company, I think. They were doing consumer microbiome, but hardly anybody offering such services. So we put together the entire thing together.
Tell me more.
So we have to convince somebody to give us poop. And at 36,000 rupees. So the kit box that we initially developed. So this was a product designer who interned with us. Okay, and he's now become a big shot, and he's gone on to work Lenskart and multiple other places. So he was interning just out of college, interning with us, and we gave him this as the
problem statement.
And he said, this is the problem statement. How do you convince them to give us the sample? So he designed our first kit box. Was a wooden kit box made in the I forget the toy place in
Chanpatna.
Made in Chanpatna, and it looked like a jewelry box.
Okay.
So you can open it that way, like a jewelry box, and the most precious of all samples.
Satin.
It has
maroon. This very maroon.
So when you're transporting biological samples, the UN 3373 guidelines say that you need to have
urine what?
UN 3373 guidelines say that you need to have a desiccant that can absorb any leakages. So it's a desiccant
like a material or something.
A material which can absorb any kind of liquid which leaks. So we made that out of satin. So it was a nice satin cushion in which the tube was placed, and it looked like a jewelry box. So that
does satin absorb?
No, but what we made it look like satin, and then had the desiccant done that way.
It's a jewelry box and you have like a cup inside it, like a box inside?
No, it's a small tube inside.
Test tube?
Yeah, small test tube kind of thing with a cap.
Okay.
A cap and a spatula.
Spatula is a spoon?
Spoon.
Okay.
So this is something that we imported from Germany.
Yeah.
And there was a toilet
You imported it from Germany?
Because it has a stabilization liquid which makes the sample stable for 30 days under room temperature.
The test tube has a liquid in it already, okay.
Yeah, so that's why you put in the fecal sample. And the sample would be stable for about 30 minutes, for about 30 days under room temperature. So we had to import that from Germany. And then we also wanted a tissue band which goes over the toilet seat.
You want a tissue?
Band.
Tissue band, okay.
Which goes over the toilet seat. So this for easy collection.
I don't understand now.
So easy collection of the poop sample. Okay. So I mean,
so it's like a tissue. It's like a tissue cover, the one that you get these days.
Not a full cover. It's almost like a band that goes over the toilet seat.
So you just lay. How does the process work? I'm because I have no idea. I wish I'd done a test of this before.
Sorry to gross you a lot, but so when you go into the loo in the morning, you just pass a little bit on the tissue band.
Oh, okay.
So that you don't have to go reach into the bowl to take it. You just take it out of the tissue band. That's
some aiming skills.
My moonshot is to get to a hands-free collection method.
Oh, it still hasn't happened.
It still hasn't happened. That's my moonshot, and every engineer that passes by me, I keep throwing them this challenge. But those days, every Thursday we would sit after. Every Thursday afternoon was dedicated to how do you improve the collection.
How do you make it
less cumbersome for the individual? So the tissue band. Surprisingly, we never used to get tissue bands in India at that point of time. And we couldn't make it here. Nobody was ready to make it. So we used to import tissues from UK initially.
Really?
Yeah. For the first 6-8 months we did it till we figured out how to do it in India. Yeah. So the tube was from Germany. The tissue band was from UK. We got this nice looking box from Chanpatna made, and then we went and told them this is where you need to collect it, and the box became a good conversation starter. It made the consumers intrigued as to what we were doing, and they realized we were not just another diagnostic company trying to collect a sample. There's more science into this, art into this thing than what they had anticipated. So
how did you? I understand this process, but how did you explain this to them? Did you have like a onboarding process? Did you have like a video? Did you have like just a chart that would do it?
Video took a little longer time. Initially it was one of us sitting with the client for about an hour explaining what it is that we're trying to do and what you can get out of it. Also, we didn't want to give any kind of wrong notion saying that, something, a miracle will happen or anything like that. No overselling, but just trying to give them the sense of the science behind what we're trying to do. And once you sit with them for some time, they kind of understand and they appreciate it and they're willing to do the test. So that's how we did it. And a lot of times we would convince the nutritionist or the trainer or the person in charge of the athlete's well-being. So it's about convincing them more than convincing the person itself.
Right. Because they already have trust established or they have a working relationship. What changes did the athletes have? Did they were you able to give them insight?
There was no Indian baseline, first of all. So we had to go around getting an Indian baseline done.
You have to explain Indian baseline because
when you're doing the microbiome sampling, like I mentioned earlier, there are about 1,500 to 2,000 different organisms and that are present in it. So part of this are probiotics, part of this are pathogens, so the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. All of them need to be present at a certain ratio for it to be beneficial for you. And if those ratios change, then it becomes problematic for you. The second thing is the number. If the number of species start coming down, then it's problematic for you. So the lesser the species, the more problematic it is for you. And then there's a ratio between bacteria versus fungus versus virus. And this ratio is slightly different to the West as compared to India. So we didn't know what the Indian levels for probiotics were, what the Indian levels for bacteria versus fungus were. So all of this is something that we had to initially go around checking a few normal, healthy people to try and establish what the baseline was.
And to do it before you work with these athletes, because
so that we can give them some kind of where you're at kind of level.
Some got it at a discounted price.
A lot of them got it at free at that point of time. Then the assumption that we have that a lot of the athletes are healthy, which is not true. Their bodies are under so much of stress. They're training so hard. Their lifestyle.
They're fit, but they're not healthy. Is what you're saying?
They're fit, but they're not healthy.
Okay, elaborate.
The body's under tremendous amount of stress. I mean, you're working out for something for long hours. You're putting your body under a lot of stress, which is why if you look at a lot of these athletes, when they retire, they tend to become overweight very quickly, or they tend to have a lot of health issues very, very quickly because they're putting their body through so much. And that was reflected in the microbiome as well. So initially we thought we were doing something wrong. This can't be, these are the healthiest guys in India. How can they have a microbiome which looks so bad? So it's definitely our fault, is what we were thinking. And the second thing was the Indian microbiome was so different from the Western microbiome. So again, we thought we were doing something wrong. And then after doing a few samples, then we started realizing, no, this is a trend that we're seeing. And
so what was the trend?
That
because Olympics is around, that's a very topical subject. Yeah. I'm just curious.
So that like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or any of these high performance individuals, even athletes undergo a lot of stress, both mentally and physically. So they fit in terms of being athletic and all of that, but not all their biological markers could be great. So you need to help them out with that, which is why now you're getting into nutrition. You see a lot of these players, top cricketers, getting into nutrition programs, taking care of their body as they train, which is very, very important. So that is one of the insights that we got over there. The second insight that we got is we are so different from the Western countries. We have a lot more exposure to fungal species because of the environment that we live in. Our diets are different, so that shapes the gut biome very, very differently. And you just can't follow the pattern set by Western countries. So it's completely different in that way. So after you started getting more and more samples, you started seeing these kind of trends coming out.
So what was wrong with the gut? They're not taking the right nutrition? And what were you able to give as an insight back to them, saying add this food or sleep more, or like general, or were you like very specific? You need to add this specific food in your diet, or
so.
I'm just curious what their report would have been like.
So for every, irrespective of who the person was doing the test, we started giving personalized recommendation. So this is based on the data. These are the changes we want you to make in your diet. So we're not classifying you into a bucket of diabetes patients or athletes or anything like that. This is your data, and based on this data, these are the changes that we.
And what was the usual change for an athlete like?
It was like
didn't sit well with them maybe initially.
And you must realize a lot of athletes in India are vegetarian. They don't get enough of protein. So that also you can see the changes in the biome because of that. So one of the changes was getting more vegetables into their diet, getting more playing around with the fiber a little bit, and getting that, and basically trying to improve that diversity a little bit. Getting a lot more of the fermented drinks into their diet. So these are some of
fermented drinks like alcohol.
No, what I mean by fermented drinks is curds and kombucha and kefir and all of that, and staying away from the other kinds of fermented drinks.
It's unusual. Some of the athletes that we think are the fittest and the healthiest are actually fit but very unhealthy.
Unhealthy is probably not the right word. They're not as healthy as we imagine them to be. Their body is also under stress.
So you're telling me that the free samplings that you gave, their baseline and the athlete's baseline was lower than them?
Yes.
So then they are...
they're not unhealthy, but they're not like the epitome of health.
They're not the epitome of health. Who had the epitome of healthy in your exposure so far?
Somebody from a rural setting with a little bit of physical activity, eating a wide variety of food. That's where we're getting the best.
But how can a local, let's say tier 2, tier 3 person with a little physical activity have wide variety? They usually have the local food that's grown around.
Yeah, but they're also a little more seasonal, right? They're not having mangoes all through the year, so they're having fruits and vegetables which are seasonal. There's a lot of diversity in the food that is coming in. There's a lot of diversity in the kind of meat also that they eat. They're not eating broiler chicken all the time. I mean, that's what we do here in the cities. They're not exposed to all the harmful chemicals that we are exposed to.
So they have an extremely healthy biome?
They have a very, very diverse biome. You give me a biome sample, I'll just by looking at the data, I'll tell you whether this person is from a city or a rural setting.
Oh wow! So if you had to, because people say India 1, India 2, and there's Bharat 1, Bharat 2, and all of that. If you had to look at the biome and divide India, how would that look like? Just for fun. This is not statistically backed.
This is not, please not at all statistically backed. I mean, this is not something we report on either. But you tend to make out whether they're more, like I said, one is rural setting versus urban setting based on how much of pollution is actually entering their body. So that I'm able to predict secondhand smoke as well. Again, the statistics is not really high, but more or less to a degree you'll be able to make out whether this person's exposed to secondhand smoke. Then there's this interesting patterns of rice eaters versus chapati eaters. The north-south divide that is there.
Tell us more.
Carbs are different. Different carbs have different effects on the biome. So you get to see interesting organisms, with respect to people who predominantly eat rice versus eating chapati. The kind of biome that they have is slightly different. The patterns like this. There's a lot of commonality, but there are one or two things.
So which one would you prefer?
There's no preference. I won't say there's any preference. Your rule of thumb is don't get your diversity down. Do whatever you can to make the diversity good. And
let's say you had 2 kids and you're raising them up. Would you raise them on wheat or chapati? Rice or chapati?
Neither. I would raise them on all kinds of foods. I would give them all the vegetables that are available, all the fruits that are available, all the cereals that are available. I would every day would be different. The people with the most best diverse and the most diverse biome is this tribe from Africa. They have about 350 odd different vegetables and meats and fruits every year. They're very, very seasonal in what they take.
So 350 varieties. That's like a new fruit every week.
There's a new food every week, yes. So that's what I would do.
And were you able to analyze their samples as well? And
so that data is publicly available. So we've looked into that data, and they have no.
In India, who has the most diverse?
Like I mentioned, I mean, somebody who has less exposure.
Are you able to see that as a trend across the country? Have you been able to?
Not really, because in India, most of us have not as diverse as we would like it to be. And secondly, we are also biased, right? We're getting people who are now buying the test. We're not doing studies as much as we used to before. So, that's mainly coming from urban and, maybe Taiwan, Tier 2 cities. So we're not getting as much data from
the rural, yeah.
So that's one project that I've been trying to kick off, trying to do the tribals in India, the really rural parts of India, trying to look at their biome and see how varied it looks.
Yeah, you should have a gut worth report, man. There's net worth indexes and all of that. You should have like there's Forbes 40 under 40. You should have a gut worth report that says who has the best and healthiest gut and the most diverse gut.
That's work that is going on for that. So
that would be so interesting. Yeah, diversify your gut or something like that. How were you able to take it to the masses, and how were you able to bring it from 36 to 10,000 now?
Yeah, 10,000.
How were you able to bring it that lower level?
So
almost 1/3 the cost, or even lesser.
The first thing is when you're servicing the Indian market, there's always pressure to bring down prices. Right from day one, you're bringing down prices. So instead of importing tissue paper from UK, can you find a local manufacturer who can do the same thing for you? So things like that. You start.
Why couldn't you just put a plastic cover?
You need the user experience, right? I mean, you need them.
You want them to show that this is worth 36,000. It's not.
No, it's not that. I mean, you want them to feel comfortable while taking the sample. How do you flush? What do you do? If you have a plastic cover, you can't flush it down afterwards. And it's very difficult to throw it out.
Right.
Yeah. So these, you have to make the user experience as easy and as comfortable as possible. So, the tubes that we were getting from Germany, now we have an Indian manufacturer who is probably better than the German ones.
Yeah.
So switching that.
How much was the cost difference?
Not much. I mean, I would say about right now it's maybe about $150-200
per piece. That's it.
That's it. But there are other costs that are added to it, right? I mean, importing, the time taken, the import duty, you'll have to place your order in bulk for it to come. So there's cash flow issues that come into play.
Right, you have to pay up front and then you have to wait.
Wait, exactly.
Right.
Here it's a 2-day turnaround time. There's easier settlement methods.
Right. You can pay a month later also.
Yeah. So you can get into a good relationship with your vendors over here. And secondly, initially we didn't have a lab of our own. We were outsourcing the sequencing part of it. So how this works is once the poop sample comes to us, we extract all the microbial DNA from it, and then we put it into something called as a next generation sequencing machine.
Is there an actual name?
It's called NGS.
Okay.
It's a machine which will sequence any kind of DNA. Now,
how expensive is this machine? 5 crores, 10 crores?
Yeah, it'll be around, the ones we use about 1.5 crores, but because we are very, very specific in the kind of sequencing that you're doing. Okay. But if you're doing human genomics and all that, then it goes up to $1 million, about 8 crores, 10 crores and all that. So, and it's expensive to maintain also. So initially we were sending it to US for sequencing, then it became Singapore, Hong Kong, and finally we found a local company that was doing it. But we've always wanted to start our own sequencing facility. So once thankfully, just before COVID hit, 2019, 2020, around that point of time, we decided to do our own lab. And again, went to the lab with first principles in mind. So,
tell me, what did you choose not to do?
we didn't have the money to do a full-fledged big lab. Okay. We haven't, we've got very nominal amount of funding. Otherwise, we've been bootstrapped most of the way. So it's been revenue that's keeping us going. So trying to do a 10 crore lab and all of that was just definitely out of the question. Even otherwise, to set a 30-40 lakh infrastructure was out of the question. We were like, why is this needed? Why is this needed? We questioned everything in the step of sequencing. And we said, we'll start with this bare minimum. These are not consumer samples that are going to come to us. This is just for us to start, doing some samples in the lab to test it out to see whether we can do the lab as well. So we don't need a big infrastructure. Let's start off with a small room, a small space, and replace any expensive machine with a local jugaad.
Like what? Tell us more.
So, there's
hopefully something will understand. Tell me more. Yeah.
So there's something called as a vortex mixer. So it's a machine which just turns your tube upside down like this. So instead of machine doing it, we take the tube and we'll do it ourselves. So we did that for the first 3-4 months. Instead of having automation in your pipetting systems, we'd manually pipette it. A lot of labs do that, but we'd still do manual. A lot of the things where a machine can do it, we would do it automated way. You want to heat something, instead of buying an expensive water bath or one of those heating blocks, inductor kind of a heating blocks. We'll see what else can we do to get rid of it. Have a thermometer, have an inductor, see the temperatures and all of that. And the experiments were bad. It's not like we were getting quality results or something like that. But we understood the first principles of a lot of things. So we understood why certain chemicals were used, why certain chemicals are important, and all of that. There's something called as magnetic beads.
Magnetic beads. Okay.
So it kind of, once you put the magnetic bead, it'll pull the DNA to one side. So you're able to filter out the other things. Sorry, I know it's crude and laymanish, but that's how it does it. So initially we got beads which were not of good quality, and our experiments would constantly fail, and that's when we realized we have to get the expensive best beads. There's no go for so much for about I don't know, maybe 1 ml or less. 5 ml. I think it is 1,50,000 rupees or something like that. And
it's reusable.
One-time use. So you need small quantities every time, but still it'll go away in about a month or two. That's how much we tend to use it. So you have to get the best beads over there. There's no alternative. So we did 6 months of experiments this way.
Through the COVID.
Before COVID. Thankfully, before COVID. And none of those were patient samples or any of the direct samples. That was still being sent out for sequencing. This was experiments that we were doing with all our samples just to see whether we can do sequencing. And slowly, step by step, we built the lab. And we started doing sequencing on our own. And because we did this experiment for 6 months, we said, okay, this reagent is doing this step and it's expensive. Is there an alternative? Do we have to use the recommended reagent? Or can we find another good alternative reagent which is 1/5 price? We tried it out, results were good, we switched. In certain cases we tried it out, results were bad, we didn't switch. So this is how, iteratively, so from 36,000 we brought it down to 24, from 24 to 20, from 20 to 14, and from 14 down to 10 now.
Oh wow. Do you plan to go further down?
We want to go further down, but now is when scale needs to come in. All of those factors will start coming in for it too.
Does scale work to reduce the cost in a practice like this?
It does.
Really?
You still spend a little bit on logistics, sending the kit, getting the sample back. So
there's the delivery charges.
Delivery charges. So again, scale works in that.
Unusual. Yeah, that's something we're going to double click on, because you have not only one, you have reverse logistics also. That's a whole different dynamic.
Reverse poop logistics.
Yeah. So we'll get to that. But what are you saying at scale?
Scale, even when you're getting the tubes, when you're getting the kit box, all of that at scale, the prices will come down. And the more samples we do per month, the more the more reagents we buy, and the more price pressure we can put on our vendors, saying that we're buying more, reduce your cost, kind of thing. So yes, scale will bring down the cost. And secondly, I mean, if you've seen there's this famous genomics chart. Anybody working in genomics would have seen this chart. Your cost of compute coming down versus the cost of DNA sequencing coming down.
Oh,
and you can see how DNA sequencing has,
as the scale improve, the numbers go up.
In 1996 it was $500 million
for one
human genome.
Oh, did anybody do that?
Yeah, the US government did it at that point of time. 96 to 2004 was when they did the first human genome project, and it was close to about $500 million. I think that's what it was. And then now it's come down to $1,000 to do one human genome. And the goal is to get it to $100 to do one human genome, which there's a lot of companies that are there competing with each other.
So if I look at human genome as a big aspect, what you're doing is a small subset of that.
So it's not the genome that we're doing, it's the microbial genomes that we're doing, but the technology is the same. Oh. We don't need as much data as the human genome would require. The data requirement here is lower, but...
so you would only take poop sample, but a human genome would take what all samples?
The human genome will take the saliva sample, but from the poop sample, we're extracting only the microbial DNA. In the saliva sample, or in any other sample where you want to do the human genome, you'll extract the human genome itself. Oh. So you won't... there the microbial genome is a contamination, so you'll filter it out.
Unusual. So do you plan to go that route?
The human genome route? For certain B2B partners, we offer human genome analysis as well, because we've done an initial bit of work on that. So, but this is not a direct-to-consumer offering. This is only for selected partners that we...
Right. Maybe a multinational coming and saying, do it for executives.
Yeah, something like that. Or they want to do a study where they're comparing the microbiome and the genomics, all of that put together. So, so things like that is where we're doing.
And this is still at $1,000 in India as well?
In India, it's slightly more. I think it is now come down. I mean, I think the industry standard is about $600. This is the whole human genome, but you can do parts of the human genome as well. So that's coming down. Reliance Strand, which Reliance bought over a couple of years ago. They're doing the whole exome, which is the
there's genome and then there's exome. What's exome?
Exome is the functional part of the genome.
Okay.
That they're doing for 15,000 rupees in India.
What do you get out of that? What kind of insights?
So all the functional part of the genome. So that means this is your genetic makeup. When people say this is your genetic makeup, and this is how your gene is expressing itself for you to have this body and have these functions. So that's what you would get out of that.
And what do you do with that data?
You understand your body better. So this is where you know whether you're going to become diabetic or not.
Preventive.
And then you can. There's nothing that you can do to change your genetics, but you could probably take measures to stay away from. Are you prone to cancer? That's a big one. Are you prone to cancer? If you are to certain cancers, then you do precautions to not go there. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of biology for a podcast. Oh, good God. Huh? It's a very unusual rabbit hole that I felt that optimizers or these what are they called, biohackers or these geeks would go down, and it's such a niche offering that you provide. How do you get customers now? How is that? I mean, how do you get people to know about you and then get people to do it? How have you gotten that entire structure? I'm aware of it, but I want to understand how have you gotten it.
So the biohackers and athletes have now become a small percentage of the users that use our test. So the large group of people that use our test is probably somebody who's been having some kind of a lifestyle disease. So could be bloating, could be ulcers, could be diabetes, could be depression, could be something. They've been suffering for about 3 to 5 years' time. They've tried different solutions, nothing's worked out for them, and now they're trying the gut microbiome. And we usually get these customers through either doctors or nutritionists or wellness coaches. So we do very little direct-to-consumer testing. We don't advertise too much for direct-to-consumer, but it's all through B2B partners that we get the testing.
And I remember how you told me you've gotten these clinics, you've gotten the doctors to add this as a test. And how were you able to do that network of doctors and clinics?
Many years of going and talking to them and telling them. So
did you start with a specific specialization?
So the lowest hanging fruit was the gastroenterology. That's the gastros were the first people that we targeted. We also did a study in 2016 with a hospital in Pune where we did it for about 15 patients. It was a small study, but we showed the efficacy of doing the microbiome test and giving recommendations post that. So then we went and spoke to a lot of healthcare professionals in that space, and that's how we started onboarding them. The key to this is to do more studies, to publish more papers, and show the efficacy of the test. And more people will start joining the program.
So it's like your marketing is the papers and the research that brings in.
Because it's so new and it's so complicated. Everybody has a different everybody has a different opinion about the gut biome.
What are the different opinions? What are the polar ones?
Either the people there are doctors who believe in it, or the doctors who think that the science is very new and we don't understand it fully. Which is, I'm not denying it, but there are merits of implementing what is already known. So you need to do these studies, and then the gut biome influences 100 odd diseases.
How many diseases are there in the human ecosystem?
The rare disease count itself is 7,000.
Oh.
But the lifestyle diseases are about 150 to about 200. I think.
Okay. So half of the lifestyle diseases.
It has a correlation to it. No established causality to it.
So do you still agree to the phrase that all the diseases start from the gut?
I won't say all the diseases. A lot of the diseases, the gut plays a primary role in it.
A primary role in it?
For some of it influences...
Including love.
No. A lot of the serotonin is produced in the gut. A lot of the neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. So maybe love is produced in the gut. I don't know. So there's a lot of correlation that's been established. We still don't know the causation of a lot of this. Whether the biome is actually causing the disease, or is it because of the disease that the biome is changing? So for a lot of diseases, we don't know it. But for a select few, we know the causation. We know how the biome is actually causing the disease.
Interesting. How have you used this data for your own personal health?
I've used it more as experiments. So initially, when I first heard about the microbiome, I'd binge on curds every day. I probably have about 1 or 2 liters of curds every day.
1 or 2 liters
of curds every day.
How did you manage to have so much curd?
just go buy packets and packets of curds and keep drinking it and all of that. That's also a very, very bad thing to do. Too much of probiotics is also bad for your system.
You drank 1 to 2 liters of curd a day.
Yeah, I did that for about 2-3 months, and
like Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
kept sipping it between work.
Yeah, and it ruined.
My God.
And it ruined my gut badly. I mean, like I said, you can't let 1 or 2 species dominate the gut. There needs to be diversity. So even probiotics, if it goes above a limit, it's problematic to your gut. In my world, there is no good bacteria, bad bacteria. Everything is relative proportions.
Okay.
So I've done experiments like that and see how my gut biome changes. But just try different foods. I'm trying to establish causality between what I'm doing to what the biome is, and those are the experiments that I keep doing. So.
And how comfortable is your wife with all of this?
Yeah, she's part of the journey, so for better or for worse.
Because it's very unusual to change and keep changing your food preferences and habits and.
Yeah, but now that it's been this year we're turning 10 since we started the company, and I think it's time that I've slowly started stopping these kind of experiments. I'm also getting a little on the wrong side of 40, so I better
wrong side of 40. What's the average age of the consumer that you get to analyze?
40 plus. So there are distinctly 40 plus is what we get. And like I said, they have to be symptomatic of some kind of disease for us to get the sample right now.
So it's always a residual of some disease that they're having, and they're like figuring out the causation of it.
The causation.
That's the journey.
One, they're figuring out the causation. Secondly, they're not. Anything else has not made their life better. So people who have done weight losses, they have that yo-yo effect. They lose weight, then they pull back on. And there's a clear microbiome link to it, and it's certain bacteria that are present that actually make you put on weight again. So if you rebalance that, then your weight loss.
By changing your food?
Yeah, you rebalance the microbiome, the bacteria through food, then your weight loss will be a little more sustained.
Interesting. So most of the consumers are in the 40 and above.
Yes.
And they're coming because they already have a disease and they're trying to map out something that they could figure out a solution for.
Either they have a disease or they have a symptom. It's like I have too much of bloating. I've been having bloating for 2 years. So let me try out something.
How do you make the business predictable? You told me last time that you bring them in for follow-up checkups. How have you structured that? Can you share that?
So our business is more B2B2C.
Yeah. You're going to hear, this is being recorded in my house, so you're going to hear water, you're going to hear honks, you're going to hear doors opening and closing. Well, it's part of the diversity in my house, so bear with me. Back to you.
So our business is more B2B2C. So the consumer is actually coming to whoever the healthcare professional is. Could be a nutritionist, could be a wellness coach, could be a doctor, could be a trainer, could be one of these. And we do the test, we give the recommendations. They follow up with them for 2 months, 3 months, and they give us feedback saying that nowadays the feedback is mostly that everything is working, but initially it was what was working, what was not working. And that's how we get that feedback loop back into our system.
And what point do they come back for a retest? Do you get to?
So if it is a very severe thing that they've undergone, any severe disease that they've had, they usually do the retest 4 months after doing the first test. Otherwise, they do it either once in 6 months or once a year, depending on their on if they can afford it.
Who's the majority chunk that sends consumers towards you? Is it the trainers? Is it the hospitals? What kind of hospitals? I'm just curious because
I would say 70% non-hospitals. So these are wellness in nature, and 30% hospitals. But a year from now, that would almost flip.
You want to focus more on hospital?
No, we're doing more studies. We're publishing more papers. Hence, doctors are getting a lot more confident, and the hospital business will start increasing on that.
That's an unusual outreach approach. Is it common
in healthcare? It is. If you want to go through the hospital network, it better be backed with good science, and the only way to prove it is through publications.
So you have scientists and researchers on the roll to make sure this.
Yes.
Nice. How does insurance work with all of this, and how does GST work with all of this? How do you navigate both of them?
Insurance. Only a handful of people have got the test coverage through insurance. Otherwise, we're still trying to find out why the insurance companies are not covering this. So I think we'll get to know the answer soon, and let's see if we can get it into insurance at some point. With respect to GST, it is we just got exempted from GST. As in our company got exempted from GST last month.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that just brings price down like by.
Yes, but
how much was it before? 18?
It was 18% before, but it's not like our B2B partners can remove GST. They have to apply and get the exempt as well. So before the consumer can get the benefit, it'll probably play out probably another year or so.
Eventually, it will reduce the cost significantly now. Yeah. Otherwise, it's like 11,000 change, and now it's going to be like 10,000. What else have you done to make this business sustainable or make this business scale?
So we had the opportunity of getting into many other microbiome testing. For example, skin, oral, all of that. We've stayed away from all of that consciously for the longest time. Concentrated on doing only gut till we hit a certain volume. And now that the volume from the gut is coming, so that is stable, predictable business coming from the gut business, we now will start getting into other kinds of microbiomes.
So what volumes are you at now?
So we're doing close to about 4,000 samples a month, growing at about 30% every quarter. So should be able to get to 10,000 samples a month.
With the same lab and capacity?
With the same lab capacity, all of that. Logistics is a nightmare, but...
I'm glad you brought this up. Elaborate the nightmare.
Imagine calling up Blue Dart and telling them we want to ship poop samples from across the country. So.
But first we had to import a lot of this. That was even more of a hassle. Yeah,
but that is more, getting the right MSME certificate, import-export license, all of those kind of licenses in place. So that was the easy part. But here this is because it's going to be fecal samples. It's always an at-home collection. You're not going to blood. You can even go to the hospital and get it on. So it's always at somebody's house. So even for a lot of our hospital partners, we do the logistics for them.
So even now that you have hospital partners and wellness centers, it's still collected from at home?
Yeah, it's still collected at home because that's where you're most comfortable to collect the sample, right? So they would collect the sample, and once the sample is collected, we'd have somebody to go and pick it up and ship it back to us.
So how do you get a Blue Dart?
So you get the first thing that we realized was UN 3373. So it is 3 layers of packaging that is needed, so that if there's any kind of sample leakage, it doesn't leak fully outside. So try and get that sorted. And talk to a lot of these courier companies, tell them what we're doing. There are now a lot of pharmaceutical specific courier companies. They do, because a lot of clinical trials are now happening in India. So the courier companies are now used to biological samples. So that could be skin, blood, poop, urine, any of this. So now we have a lot more options of doing the courier service.
So you have the ecosystem, you have trained folks going and collecting these?
Yes, well, the ecosystem we're building, we've also experimented with our own pickup agents who will actually go pick it up from the person's house and then drop it to one of the courier partners that we have. So we are also experimented a little bit with that. Because the other problem, my biggest pain point is it's not the science, it's not any of that. My biggest pain point is as soon as the customer collects the sample, they want it out of the house. Think about it. I mean, you've collected fecal sample. You don't want that lying around in your house for 2-3 days, and you want it out of the house as soon as possible. So that is what I'm trying to solve for.
So you're saying it takes 2 to 3 days for
the pickup to happen sometimes. Because when you're looking at return logistics, most of them are thinking Amazon returns or Flipkart returns.
There's no priority.
There's no priority over here. So here the mindset is changing. We're telling them this is priority, go pick it up. And now we've brought it down to within 24 hours. And for a lot of the metros, it's within 12 hours the sample is picked up. But I want to get that down to within an
8
hour.
minutes.
8 minutes. 8 minutes is what I would love to do. So that's what we're now figuring out how to do that.
Yeah, I see how big of a needle mover that would be.
Yep.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
The second thing that we're trying our best to do is right now the turnaround time to generate the report is about 3 weeks.
Ooh.
The global standard is anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So we've got it down to about 3 weeks. I want to get it down to a 1 week TAT.
How did you bring it down to 3 weeks?
Just by...
Where was it before?
It was between 4 to 6 weeks because we were outsourcing it. But when we started doing it, for the longest time we were 4 weeks. And there are times where we've gone to 5 weeks and we've delayed reports and all of that. But now there's predictability in volume. What we've also done is predictability in the sequencing part of it. So a lot less failures happening during sequencing. So there's no resequencing of the samples that's happening. So
and how were you able to do that?
Making sure in the initial QC itself that
QC is quality check?
Quality check.
Okay.
In the initial quality check itself that we're getting the right standards. So thereby any failure further on is minimized.
So you're doing it once, you're doing it right.
Doing it once, doing it right is going to be right. Okay. Not worrying about the cost right now. I know at some point of time I can bring down the cost there also. But if we can do it once, do it right, and be predictable about it, then we can work on getting the cost down.
So you've been able to do it. That's how you're able to shrink it down to 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
How will you get it to a week? I'm just curious.
Because
how will you bring it to a day?
You can't bring it to a day.
No.
The runtime on the sequencer itself is 72 hours. The prep for it is about 2 days. The data processing from a few hours, I've got it down to a few minutes now. So it's at 500 seconds at the moment. If I can get that down to 30 seconds, it'll be great. But that's not the biggest needle to move right now. It's the prep. If we can get that down to a day, that'll be nice.
Do you have one lab in Bangalore, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
And all the samples across the country come to Bangalore?
All the samples across country, across Asia come to Bangalore.
Across Asia come to Bangalore?
Yep.
Okay. Which other country
Thailand, Philippines.
brings in the most samples?
Thailand.
Thailand?
Yeah.
Because of the amount of wellness centers that it has?
That it has. We are also FDA approved in Thailand. So that gives us that credibility mark over there. And we tend to get a lot of samples from Thailand.
Interesting. So you bring it to Bangalore and then you have a reverse logistics to send something back, or just the report?
Just the report going back to. Once the sample is picked up, the logistics is pretty straightforward now.
Yeah.
And that is improving. I think worldwide, everybody's improving turnaround time for logistics. From FedEx to DHL to everybody, they're working really hard to make sure that everything is like a 24-hour, 48-hour TAT. Just that that initial sample pickup is something that we need to work on, and then the TAT is not a problem. The
turnaround time?
Logistics turnaround time won't be the problem.
Yeah.
The lab part of it is where we need to make it more efficient.
How has AI impacted all of this? Because you work with data so intensively. How does AI help you out?
Well, we've already been doing AI, but it used to be called statistics at that point. No, I mean, we've been doing natural language processing right from day one. So right now there are about close to about 350 to 400 articles on microbiome, that is research articles on microbiome being published every month.
By
not by us,
by across
across the globe. So we need to digest all that information. So there's an AI engine that runs to get that information digested, put it into tables, that kind of work. The second thing is, with all the data that we're generating, trying to come up with patterns and make. Can I make cancer diagnosis or diabetes diagnosis a proper diagnostic? Using AI. So that's the other attempt that we're having.
Yeah, this reel just went viral on Instagram this week, where a breast cancer was predicted 5 years before. Yeah. So you see those trends happening in.
It's happening a lot in imaging. It'll soon start happening in other kinds of samples as well.
Very unusual. Yeah. That time the shit's gonna hit the fan, because people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, this is gonna happen in the 5 years down the line."
And we have
it's like seeing through the glass bowl, seeing through the jewelry box. Is it still a jewelry box?
No.
What is it now?
It's your normal cardboard box kit. It's there. I mean, jewelry box is too expensive too. I mean, you can't go to Channapatna all the time and make.
So it's a cardboard box, and you have the same test tube. And
we have the similar kind of test tube and the band and gloves and all that.
Nice. I like how you've. Next time if I'm getting a product company, I'm gonna ask them, listen, bring samples, bring things. I can show it here because now it's video. That would be really nice. What would be the advice now that you have understood the Indian pattern of food, the diversity we have, the lifestyles we have, the pollution levels that we have on a statistical level, and you have worked with elite athletes, biohackers, you worked with people in their 40s and above who are more sensitive to health issues. What would you suggest to somebody in their 20s and 30s in terms of taking care of their health and food?
Eat as much diverse food as possible. My challenge to a lot of people is, can you have 20 different vegetables in a week? Most of us can't even name 20 different vegetables. So we think we eat healthy when we just eat the same 4 vegetables over and over again. Can you diversify that? And similarly with all kinds of food, even with meat. Instead of just having chicken, can you diversify meat as much as possible? I don't believe in diet fads as much, and I don't think one diet is much better than the other diet. But let's just be conscious about how much of variety we're eating. Can we be seasonal about our kind of food is what I think will work the best.
And what superfood have you seen that is actually a superfood?
In India, we have every culture in India has their own superfood.
Like what's it for Kannadigas? You're a Kannadiga.
It's any kind of fermented food that we do at home. So kanji is probably well known throughout India. So it's rice put in water, which is fermented overnight, and you have it. So we've lost out on these practices. So that is, you don't need any other kind of probiotic drink. You don't need a probiotic capsule. You don't need any probiotics. If you can just go back to doing fermented food. I'll ask you this. What is the best source of probiotics?
I thought curd was. I thought Greek yogurt was. But
it's not food.
It's not food? Okay. Is it love? What is it?
It's your skin. So eating by hand you're actually getting a lot of probiotics into your system.
Elaborate.
So the skin microbiome is a host to a lot of the probiotics. And just by eating by hand, you're ingesting a lot of the probiotics.
So dirty hands are good. No.
Well, I'll put it slightly different.
Okay.
Do you really need to use sanitizers all the time? I understand healthcare professionals being in hospitals exposed to germs, really pathogenic thing. They have to use sanitizers. You're staying at home, use soap and water. Why go into harsh chemicals? There's a need. You visit a place where it's full of pathogens, then use sanitizers. But at home, soap and water is good enough.
So you're saying the bacterias
and us eating through spoons and forks have lost out on the probiotics that you can get from your skin.
Oh, unusual. Okay, give me one more insight like this. You're on a roll.
Again, fermented foods, curds is a good example.
But not 1 or 2 liters a day.
Exactly. Probiotics, if taken in excess, is also bad.
What is excess?
1 or 2 liters of curds. Have normal quantity of curds.
Like 1 or 2 cups?
1 or 2 cups of curds kind of thing.
Okay.
So when you're having curds, it'll be nice to have fresh curds. But this is not something that that all of us can do. I mean, we have to keep it in the fridge. If you keep it in the fridge and when you're consuming it, keep it out for some time, let the organisms revive a little bit, and then have it. Curd, which is refrigerated, would ideally should be kept outside, let the organisms revive a little bit, and then have it.
Okay, one more. I know you're racking your brains. Give me one more.
Idli dosa batter when we were making it at home. So our tradition was that we used to mix the idli dosa batter with hand.
Yeah.
And if you notice, when you mix it with hand, it kind of ferments much better than when you just take a
grinder and
ladle to mix it.
Oh.
And that's because you're transferring the probiotics into the batter, and the fermentation is much better then. So these are small things. I mean, I'm not saying one method is better, significantly better than the other, but I think it just improves the probiotics that's going into your system by doing these small very things.
Yes, that completes the reel.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get to rapid fire questions. Tell me about 3 books that you would recommend for founders to read.
For founders to read.
It could be around health, could be around gut health, yeah.
Gut by Julia Enders, I think that's a terrific book for anybody in the gut space to read. I mean, that's a good book. For founders, I'm cliched, but Peter Thiel is 0 to 1 is a must. I mean, you kind of understand, especially for first-time founders. I think that's very, very important. What else from lots of podcasts? I would encourage. I mean, you don't have to necessarily go for books. There's lots of podcasts that are read. Reid Hoffman's
Huberman Lab.
So all of those are pretty good.
Oh no, Reid Hoffman has a different podcast. My bad. Yeah.
Masters or something.
My phone is here. Okay.
I mean, I listen to a lot of the Seen and the Unseen and lot of those behavioral economics podcasts.
One movie that you'd recommend founders to watch?
So, Social Network. I mean, it gives you the dynamics of the entire relationship between founders. I mean, that's at the end of the day, the starting journey, the first 5 years, it's all about founder relationship. That's what builds the ethos of the company and the culture of the company.
I know the test is at 10,000 rupees, but what would be a recent purchase of yours below 10,000 that you found very interesting and you want to recommend?
Below 10,000. I would say to convert my normal table into a standing table.
That's not 10,000 rupees, that's 40,000 rupees right there.
No. I'm converting my normal table to a standing table. So
Not a convertible one.
Not a convertible. So just, I'm a startup entrepreneur. I can't afford 40,000 rupees.
You can afford a 1.2 crore machine to process your poop. Oh, good God. Before I get to the final question, I wanted to check, you have raised funding. How was fundraising for you? How did you approach it? How were you able to get these early backers?
The one thing that I've not been good at is to raise funds.
Really?
Yeah. It's deep tech, deep biology, a lot of R&D. So raising funds is very, very, has proven to be very, very difficult. We've raised a little bit of funds early on.
What's a little bit?
We raised 3 CR in total.
In 10 years?
In 10 years.
And how much did you liquidate?
About less than 20%.
Okay, that's great, huh?
But we've been customer love and is what we've been running for so many years. It's not like I haven't pitched. It's not like I haven't met any of the investors here in India. I've probably met most of them in India. But getting deep tech funds for deep tech, especially biotech in India, is very, very difficult. You could get seed funding, but getting a proper pre-series or a series A could be a little difficult in India. Because biotech is new. Biotech is there are 2 reasons I think that is happening. One, the gestation period in biotech is long. So unless you're doing this as a consumer business, I'm saying I'm a consumer company, I'm selling a D2C test, and I look at it from a consumer angle and pitch it, then you'll be able to get the money for it. But we're not, I don't want to call, that is not our ethos, that is not our DNA. We're not a consumer first company. We're more, we want to build this entire stuff, science stuff, and make it more, it's a tool for a lot of the doctors and nutritionists to use for, rather than a consumer business. So we're still biotech that way. So raising funds for biotech is difficult. None of the VCs understand this domain well enough. And I'm not pointing fingers at them. I'm just saying that this is a new domain, and there is you need to do a lot of homework for this. And that VC I've not come across anymore. Come across till date. Secondly, there's so many opportunities in India. Even the 10th Swiggy will still make a lot of money, give the VCs a good exit here in India. There's still so much of opportunity in other spaces that is far more easy to understand in India, which is where a lot of the funding is going through. So unless biotech founders make a lot of money.
Why don't you offer free gut biome test to all the VCs in Bangalore?
No, all the VCs in Bangalore tend to buy my tests. So
they what?
They tend to buy my tests.
Oh, they tend to buy a test. They tend to use a test.
Yes. So a lot of them have used it. So if I'm going for a pitch session, whether I raise money or not, I definitely sell 1 or 2 tests and come back.
Okay. That's still raising money.
The love that we've got from VCs from outside India has been really good. So we've been, when we talk to VCs from either Europe or US, the raising funding for us over there won't be a challenge at all. We've hit the right chord with them. We just haven't done it as yet. We want to do it for something very niche, which I can't talk about right now, but we want to do it for something very niche, which will happen sometime next year. So that's when we'll go fishing. And for that to happen, we might have to flip the company.
Flip the company?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So right now we are an India incorporated company. We'll have to make either the company a Delaware headquartered or something like that.
Yeah. And this will be a subsidiary?
This will be a subsidiary. Right. So we've been part of 3 accelerators till date.
Okay.
One was GAIN out of India.
GAIN?
Which was an interesting one. It's an Indian accelerator, got exposure to what they do in the acceleration program. But the two significant one was Mass Challenge in Switzerland. So that's where we got connected with a lot of the pharmaceutical, big pharma and nutraceutical companies. So we have pitched to Ferrero, to Nestle, to Givaudan, all these companies through that accelerator. Well, when I said pitch, not for funding, but product for work. So that's one. And the last accelerator we were in was GSK's accelerator. So GSK has a consumer.
GSK is what?
Glaxo.
Okay, GSK.
GSK. So they have
it's a full circle for you guys.
Yeah. So they have a consumer company called as Helion. So we were part of Helion's.
Is the Helion venture Helion?
No.
That's
this is different. This is all GSK's consumer brands go through Helion. So we had we went through their acceleration program.
So did you liquidate stakes every time? None of this.
None of this.
Very interesting.
So it's a good way to connect to all these big players and a good way to get exposure to international markets.
And they lead to significant business.
They lead to significant business. Although with big companies, if anything happens within 3 or 4 quarters, that means they're moving into lightning speed. So it is a slow process.
Coming to the final question, what's the impact you seek to make with Leucine Biome?
I mean, we want to become the largest microbiome player globally. We are hoping to become we're very close to becoming the largest player in Asia, but we'll soon we want to become the largest player globally. But that's an ambition for the company. But what we actually want to do is go deep into preventive healthcare. Right now, we have solutions for when people fall ill or get symptomatic. But we at some point in time want to transition into more to, like we keep saying, want to move into healthcare and not sick care. So want to catch them when they're 20 and make sure that they don't fall ill ever again. So that's the impact that we want to have.
Yeah, get them right early on so they don't have these
issues
later in life. Godspeed to you, man. And
thank you. I'm on Twitter at Biome Shankar. I'll give you the handles you can pull up.
Yeah.
Our consumer microbiome test is on Bugspeaks.com. That's Bugspeaks.com.
Spell it out.
Bugspeaks.com. So you can reach out and get a test over there as well.
I wanted to throw out a challenge for my listeners, a 1-week challenge, and probably a hashtag with it. What would it be? That they could go out and try it for a week.
Explore the different fermented foods that you get in your area, community. Could be kombucha, could be kefir, could be any of the fermented foods. Just go explore that and hashtag fermented foods.
Hashtag fermented foods, that is. Hashtag fermented foods, make a post and we'll follow it. On that note, go and make some Galata. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the podcast.